And okay, great, I can. But see, this needs to face that way, so it's a little strange. Let's talk about the greatest security challenges, in your opinion, that face MCPS right now in terms of the schools. What would you identify as the greatest security challenges?
Well, I think the greatest security challenges are going to be how we sort of reorganize in a way to address some of the issues that our schools are facing, right? So some of the issues are centered around, we have, some of the schools have open lunch policies, and sometimes we have visiting students that like to sometimes come and visit our schools. So some of our schools are starting to adapt to an ID policy that is going to be very beneficial, that allows to make sure the staff knows who should be in the school and making sure the schools are secure, right? So, and we still have lingering issues and different aspects of our challenges of security with, again, staffing, but we're really starting to get our hands are wrapped around that, working with the administrations at each of our schools to provide them with the necessary assistance they need to make sure that they have a secure environment.
When you're talking about visitors coming to various schools, does that fall in the trespassing
Generally
category?
around the trespassers, right.
Okay, and so with this expanded ID program, can you explain what the new rules are? What exactly is happening with students when it comes to
Well, generally, the students are showing their IDs when they make entry into the schools. And
but
so
before, what did it look like?
Well, generally, you had an open door policy, basically, that just, the students to come through the entry doors and, just are welcome in normal. There were no required identification needed, to be walking, to be visible. So now we're requiring the students in these cases to be able to show their IDs as they're making entry into the schools.
Mm-hmm. And who's looking at those IDs?
You're looking at your security assistants. You're also looking, our administrators are also participating in that. And because, again, they know who the students who generally go to their schools. Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's every school at every level?
We'll be doing primarily at the high schools. That's the primary focus is at the high school. That's not going to be a requirement for elementary schools or our middle schools.
Okay,
right.
And so that's when they arrive. When they come in, they have to show the ID, or is it any time they enter? Or
well, generally it's any time, right? Yeah,
okay.
But it's mostly at the beginning of the days. Like you say, you still have some high schools participating in open lunches, which means the students can leave the campus and then come back onto the campus, right? So we still need to have that process solidify when that is occurring.
So are the security assistants, how are they staffed?
Well,
and how many exist at each high school?
Well, it depends on the size of the high school, and the demand and the need. So you may have some high schools who may have up to 8 security assistants. Okay, some may, we are even looking at up to 10 security assistants, again, depending upon the size, because you have some high schools with a very large population of students.
So they wouldn't be at the doors at all times. They would be at the doors maybe in the high
volume
periods.
times, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but they have different responsibilities, right? You have different responsibilities throughout the day, right? During the class breaks, right? During lunchtime, at dismissal. All of those, there are different assignments that they are giving. Working with their principals to assess those needs.
Okay, right. Very good. And I know you're looking for more. You're looking for more security assistants, right?
Always,
now.
Right.
Okay, I am going to get back to my notes. Let's go into, is there, you just discussed the challenges facing the system, but does this answer the question in terms of the biggest challenge in making this shift? Is that implementation, or is there something else here that you as a former police chief, you see as your hardest task?
No, I think again, I'm in the early stages of assessment, right? That's really where I'm at. It's looking at a lot of systems that are already in place. Now I have to decide what systems need to be revised that would be more efficient, right? That's what I'm really delving into, bringing my expertise into that world in order to be able to get the best and have the best possible outcomes as a result of this reassessment. So that is in progress. There are things that we will definitely take a really good look at, because it's a wide range of responsibility. It's safety and security, but it's also emergency management, right? So we have to put all of those pieces of the puzzle together, working with all of our administrators to be able to, again, create a system wide that's consistent across the board, that we're not doing one thing at one high school versus another, process at another high school. We need to be all on the same page.
So with emergency management, you have some things that are, some new rules in place, and you've got some deadlines for those. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I look at things, and I'll give an example, bomb threat protocols, right? We need to really look at making our assessments in a way that's going to be as least disruptive to our school days as possible, right? That we know that, working with our law enforcement partners, that it is, they bring a lot of resources to the table when you have these types of threats. But we have to really delve deep into looking at the type of threat that's being made and making really smart decisions on how we should handle those threats. Some threats you are going to have to, evacuate. But then there's sometimes you don't necessarily need to evacuate, right? We need to really assess what is the actual threats, where they're coming from. As we know, we received a lot of threats last year that came from not within Montgomery County, but from outside of Montgomery County, right? So we really have to delve a little bit deeper into understanding the dynamics there.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's get into a big headline, which was the fact that there were more than 4,000 serious incidents in the 2023-2024 school year. How do you respond to that?
Well, the first thing I think we all have to understand is, and what I'm trying to understand and learn, is what is defined as serious incidents. Okay? So in the MCPS model here, serious incidents has a wide variety of being defined in a way that it encompasses a lot of things. For example, if a student has a medical emergency, right, that they need some attention to, that is defined and classified and put in the data as a serious incident.
If I had an asthma attack and I had to go to the hospital, is that a serious?
That's a serious incident. Okay. And so that's why when you look at the breakdown of the numbers of serious incidents, and that's what we really have to, that's what I'm really kind of starting to do, to delve into, and really, having conversations with Dr. Taylor, we've already had a discussion about really coming up with a better definition of serious incidents, because again, you're throwing everything into the pot, right? And so your pot becomes larger because of that. You're putting bus accidents, you're putting incidents that occur at the schools that, for example, it could be a trespasser, it could be a fight, right? It could be another something of a sort of another incident that might require law enforcement. But many, and probably the vast majority of those incidents don't involve law enforcement at all, right? But it's something that has been a part of MCPS to make sure people are aware of what is occurring in our schools. And so again, I think we have to redefine serious incidents so everybody really clearly understands what that is.
Okay, so the classification you think needs to change?
Yes, exactly,
okay.
Right.
All right. Bear with me, y'all. Okay, so we've got to get into the discrepancies with the fights reporting, because that was really detailed at the last briefing. Why don't you elaborate on what's happening with the discrepancies when it comes to fights at school?
Right.
Why are we not seeing the true numbers?
So because, again, of the definition and maybe a little bit of confusion, right, in regards to when to report, when not to report. So what I've learned in a very short period of time is that a fight is defined as when medical personnel is called to the scene and medical attention is given to that particular victim, right, or victims of a particular fight. So let's say your normal fight that doesn't require any medical attention but maybe broken up by staff is probably more than likely not being reported out, right? Though, they're particularly in the world of where we are with social media and information sharing, that individuals are saying, oh yeah, absolutely, a fight occurred at this particular school on this date, but nobody was actually, right? No medical treatment was necessary. So therefore, that fight may not have been documented as such. And so again, this goes to where we're looking at how do we clearly define, right, what is a fight, right, versus what's not a fight. So I think based on much of what I heard from the board was they wanted, right, this to really be rectified so that we have true data, right? And so again, clarity is a key here when we're capturing true data, right? It's just like in law enforcement, right? When you're looking at crime stats, how do you capture that data? What's classified as what? And you want to make sure that, again, if you say a murder is a murder, right? This is the true number of homicides that you have, and you're not putting sugar on it, right? It is what it is, right? That's what we really have to get to make sure, and everybody understands that, right? That it's a clearly defined for all of our administrators to report out.
And one school board member was saying that they think that the principals themselves think it would be a negative reflection on them, so they're less likely to report. So that culture has to change as well.
It has to change, and I think this is one of the things that I think Dr. Taylor and I have discussed it along with other high-ranking officials here in the MCPS, is that we believe that it's important for us to get to the root cause of why things are happening. And if you don't know that something is happening, you can't address a problem. So sometimes problems might fester, right, as a result of it, because if nobody knew about certain incidents that are occurring and nothing is really we're not putting resources in place to be able to address that, then you might be dealing with a bigger problem in the end. So the reality is it's important for us to report out and not to, right, it's not so much a negative thing about, that's directed at the school or at the principal, but if you have a problem, we have to address the problem, right? So that's, for me, that's the world I live in, to try to be a problem solver and try to help people in order to maintain a safer community. So that, I think, is the message that we're really trying to share.
How soon do you think you could realistically turn that around so that you can have accurate numbers and do your job better?
Yeah, I mean, I like to be an optimist, right? I mean, I think we're going to have to work this through this school year. We're going to have to really kind of turn the curve, right, in a way that suggests that, folks have got to be really made aware, but we have to be clear in our direction, clear in the definition, so folks understand this is something I clearly understand that I have to report, that needs to be reported. And the question is, who is doing the reporting, right? And why is that necessary, right? These are the questions we have to really work together to try to figure out. But it's my intention for us to be able to do that within this school year, right, as we move towards really kind of having better data to be able to address our issues that we have in the school system.
Do you support consequences for people who underreport, for principals who underreport?
Well, that's not in my field house. I really do, my job is to make sure that the superintendent understands, what we are seeing and what needs to be addressed. And I think that's his role, right? So my feeling is I need to make sure he is aware of what's occurring, right? And I feel like that's a high responsibility for me to make sure he is fully aware of what is occurring in his school system, at any school that is centered around disciplinary issues that need to be addressed.
Okay, I want to get into the weapons detection systems and the vaping changes.
Okay.
So let's talk about the weapons detection systems, because that's something that you have touted. Why do you think? First of all, define what you're talking about when you use that terminology.
Right.
And why do you feel that that's something that would be important to implement on a high school level?
Well, first of all, we are in a new era, right? Weapons are becoming way too commonplace in our society, and it has now ventured into our schools systems across the country. Montgomery County is no different, right, than any other location. We have our neighboring jurisdictions that are already moving and have moved towards weapon detection systems. And so for me, it's not about sort of this evasiveness in a way that, sort of disrupts a regular day. But what we've seen is there are systems that are very, very efficient, that allows students to move through at a pretty rapid pace as they enter into our schools and other visitors, right? And you've seen systems like at Capital One Arena. If you've ever gone into Capital One Arena, you have if you go in and meet security at the front, you're going through those types of systems in a very quick manner, right? And in some of the other high schools, I believe Prince George's County and the District of Columbia are also going through the same sort of process. So for me, it's about, okay, we're looking for guns, we're looking for knives, we're looking for any type of weapon that was not allowable in our system, right? But it's in a way that if the detectors, and we find that there are effective systems out there that are very efficient in a way that they detect the type of weapon, we can pull that student to the side and then address that student at that very moment. And that's, again, and moving several students through in a very quick manner and efficiently through any school day.
Do you know how much something like that would cost to equip every high school with?
We're still venturing. I mean, we're probably, you talking about multi-million, process. But I think it's something that we have to take very seriously, right? And what is the cost of safety here? And but I think that's something that I'm going to look at. What's going to be most efficient? Make that proposal to the superintendent and to the Board of Education. And to see if that's something that they want to support as we move forward.
That's this year.
That's going to happen this year. Right?
Okay. But by the end of this year, you want to see these vape sensors in high school bathrooms. Is that correct?
That's correct, right.
Okay. And so right now, what process are you in when it comes to that project?
So the first thing is the Board of Ed has approved it, but now it has to have approval from the County Council. So we're still waiting for the funding to be finalized. Once the funding is finalized, then we'll work with our vendor in order to be able to start coming up with a plan as to where, which the cycle of and the schedule, I should say, for our which schools are going to get them, and all of the high schools will get them, and where will we strategically place them.
And we just shared some new information about vaping and the prevalence of it in high schools in Virginia, Maryland, and DC. What are you seeing in Montgomery County Public Schools? How big of a problem is vaping?
Well, I am hearing, I'm not so seeing, right, because I'm new to the game, but I am hearing that it's a problem, right, that we have complaints from other students about students that are vaping in our bathrooms and in other areas of our schools. So we know it's occurring, right, and we can't be to the point of being oblivious to a problem that's centered around this our young student population.
Parents are asking how it will be implemented, what will happen if the sensor goes off, who will handle it,
we're working through all of those logistics, because there's going to have to be, again, sort of all hands on deck when we talk about not only our security assistants are going to be trained and being able to respond to that, but we're also going to have staff, right, that in our schools that are going to have to be aware and are going to have to respond and address these things accordingly.
Mm-hmm. So you have another update before the board. Is that in January?
No, we're going. Well, yes, we are doing.
One?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that the next one?
That's the next one. Yes.
Okay, so you will have
Yes, we will be providing an update of
but
where we
How
are.
are you going to get them in schools by the end of? You said by the end of the school year, not by
Right.
the end of this
By
year. But okay.
total implementation by the end of the school year.
Okay, good.
Right.
That gives you a little bit of time. All right. We talked about that. All right. We're going to get back to something that you discussed as a police chief, and
Okay.
that is the Child Interrogation Protection Act. Where do you stand on that now? Has your opinion at all changed?
No. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a law enforcement role, right? And it definitely it's something that is impeding their progress, and we are partners in that regard. But no, my opinion hasn't changed as far as what I've always thought about that particular act.
Which is
Basically, I think it impedes law enforcement from getting important information, getting important intelligence that can help prevent other acts of violence or other crimes from occurring.
that law was passed in Maryland in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Are you taking any formal steps to see that the law changes or anything?
No,
like
I've
that?
made my peace with with several lawmakers and stated my case, and now that I've moved on to a new world, I'll let them let that fester, and hopefully they'll make some adjustments accordingly.
Okay, here's one from my executive producer.
Okay.
I'm attributing this. All right, he says, do you feel in your role as school security leader you can get kids to talk outside of the criminal justice system?
No, I don't think that should be my role in that regard, right? I don't think that's, what I will say though, and I think this is important for folks to know, right, is that we do have very good security assistants who have developed excellent rapport with many of our students. And that's something that I want to continue to grow from a relationship standpoint. That, again, is sort of that preventative piece that we need in place to make sure things aren't occurring in our schools.
Do you think we need more? Because I spoke to a parent who said, I think he had 7 in his school. He's at Kennedy High School.
Yeah.
They feel like they need 10.
Yeah.
And so when he saw your number, which is your number 7, that
well,
you're
some are 8, right, yeah.
He just felt like that's not enough to go around to. Are they primarily at high schools, or are they everywhere?
No, they're primarily at high schools, the
Okay.
vast majority of them. But we do have security assistants in middle schools, and we do have some that are assigned or rove at some of our elementary schools.
Okay, so he
Right.
felt you needed a larger number of assistants to handle all of the needs.
Well,
of the
that's
various
something
schools.
again I am assessing, right? Again, looking at what are those numbers and how efficient and how effective we are actually deploying them, and what are some of the adjustments that we need to make. So I don't doubt at all what he's saying, right? I said it depends on, I think it's based on school need, right? If there's a high demand of certain issues that are occurring in our schools, we need to maybe have more eyes on the ground, you might say, right, to be able to provide better service.
Another task that you've been given is to reassess that CEO program. When you talked about the relationship between these security assistants and the students, that's where my mind went.
Sure.
Would this sort of relieve some of that responsibility that they face? And do you think that CEO program needs to be phased out potentially?
No, I don't think it needs to be phased out. I think there is a purpose. There's a need there for that. But I think there's always been, right? I think there's always been, from the security assistant standpoint, they've always had the ability, and they have been successful in a lot of relationship building.
Because they're there every day.
Because they're there every day, all day, right? And versus a CEO who's not there all day, every day, and is one person, right? They are multiple people and get around, and they see a lot of things, more so.
I think people are confused about CEO. I mean, when I asked the new superintendent, he's like, what's the CEO?
Right.
And even parents, because we
Right.
had the SRO, now we got the CEO.
Yes, just SRO 0.2.
Yes.
2.0.
Oh, okay, good. Describe how you see the CEO's best functioning.
So the way I view it is, again, the best functioning is built upon relationships within the school, the staff, starting with the principal and administration. And I think the relationships are already there with most of our security staff, right? So those merge together. There's a trust, right, that knows that when I need you, you're here. These are the things I need you for, right? Again, every school is not created equal. When I say that, and I don't mean any disrespect, but some schools have higher security needs than others. And so therefore they might need you may have a CEO that may be more, there may be more needs in assisting with traffic control, right? At the start and at the end of school, and other police functions that our security assistants can't do, right? And so, or there may be, there might be some serious issues that require high visibility, right? And that's one of the things I think high visibility is a major component to prevention, right? And so we need to understand that if we have, that police car that sometimes is sitting in front of our school, then you're going to deter some things from happening. I'm not saying everything, because that's never anything that's, absolute. But in this manner, I think we need to really think about being preventative in so many ways. And the CEO can be very effective there.
How concerned are you about traffic issues around schools? Elrich recently announced that enforcement is being stepped up with MCPD and with Transportation Department. Where are you with that?
I'm absolutely with them, right? I agree.
What are you seeing that's happening around schools that could be potentially dangerous?
Well, I think, sometimes we do have aspects of, depending upon where schools are, right? A lack of sort of enforcement to make sure that our schools are actually being, students are walking, right? Students are, parents are driving them, plus with your bus traffic, we're still, having collisions that are occurring that can be probably preventable if, again, we have a presence, right? So those are challenges. I think the police department has already demonstrated to me they're willing to be a partner to help us, right, in those needs about where we are. I mean, some of those things include automated cameras, but some of those will require actually officers on the ground.
Does that take away from an already too few police officer problem? Like, is that going to pull officers from a depleted pool?
The only thing I'll say is here, right? Montgomery County Public Schools is part of the community. We're another phase of the community that, even as when I was the chief, that was to me not separate and apart, right? It's all together, and it's a part that if we have to address that, you have, when you have 3,000 plus people showing up at one general place, students, staff, and the like, that's something of major concern that we all should be aware of, and traffic is just part of that functionality that we have to address.
Could the CEOs assist with any of that traffic enforcement?
They can. It's our hope that they'll be more willing to do that. And some CEOs have always done that. I've seen it at high schools like at Paint Branch High School as an example. When I used to be the 3rd District Commander, I had a CEO who was fabulous of helping out with traffic in the morning and the afternoon. But some schools are different, right, the way they're designed and the roadways which they are part of.
How many CEOs are in the system right now?
We have a CEO for every high school, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so for every high school cluster, there is a CEO assigned to the high school, right, cluster. Right?
Okay. So every high school has access to a CEO. So that principal can pick up that phone and say,
exactly
I need you here today
can
for this,
can you
this,
assist
and this.
me? Yes.
Right. They're not in the building, but they are on call.
Yes, but they can still come to the building and be, they have they're supposed to be office space, and they can still come in and be a part of the team and address that, but they're not patrolling the hallways and the like. Okay. All right.
Okay. Good. I appreciate you breaking all that down.
Okay.
I think anything else that you want to add? I think that's it. Let me just go back over these before we shut down the camera. Good. Yes. Good. Okay. I think that's everything. Anything else you want to add? We're going to get some shots of us talking, so you got to talk more.
You took everything that I know.
Oh,
you took
no,
everything
that is
I know.
not
I don't
true.
know anything else. She emptied the bucket, right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. So interesting. I thought a lot of interesting things came out of that presentation, didn't you?
Out of the board presentation?
That was.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
You all covered a lot of ground. I mean, you demonstrated holes, right?
Right.
In the
yes.
system very quickly.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I mean, but I think they're like, again, the things that we, and I think it was important to shine a light, right? And now we work towards, right, patching up those holes, right? We got work to do, but it's we'll get there.
You can see the push toward transparency.
Yes.
It's different.
Yes. And that's a good thing, right?
That's
a good thing. Yeah.
All right. So anything else I need to know about just implementation? Like what are sort of your daily duties right now? Are you focused on sort of assessing things closer, or like in a given day, what are you doing?
So because this position is new, right, and as far as in my role, I'm really trying to get acclimated to, again, the system.
Sure.
But again, as I see what are the needs for my division of safety and security and emergency management.
Hold on one second. Keep that shot wide, please. The reversal.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep I'm just trying to get a grasp on what are those needs. So, as we develop budgets, as we look at personnel, I'm looking at, how do I, is there some readjustments in our reorganization within the entire division, right? I've got to look at that, but also have to come up with, things that are going to be efficient for all of our administrators, our principals, to make their worlds as easy as possible, and coming up with the best, what I think is going to be the best assessment in that regard.
That's Moran. That's his job, right?
Yeah. So Peter and I work a lot together. Dr. Moran and I work a lot together in order to be able to really assess what are those needs, right?
Because those are the guys that know what's going on in every school.
Oh, you better believe it. Yeah.
So you really need that close contact with them.
Yeah. So it's important, right? And again, that's why with my security teams, right? Those conversations they have to be had with the principals and their staff about what's occurring on a weekly basis, right? Yeah, not daily.
So you're having those. Have you had many of those meetings yet, or is that
I've
on
had
the table?
Few.
So so I can report that you are in the process of conducting meetings with principals to better understand the challenges that they're facing within their own schools.
Absolutely. I've done it with Kennedy High School already, knowing that they've had some significant challenge. I've already met with the PTA.
That was my next question. Are you meeting with the parents?
Yeah.
Okay.
With the PTA. I have plans to be with some of the students later on in the semester to hear from them. So I think it's going to be, again, it's important for me as we make these decisions and in these assessments, right, to hear from all of our stakeholders in that regard.
So that is the goal, to meet with how many high